Welcome again to Family Dynamics with Bola. And I'd love to say a very happy Valentine's Day to every one of my listeners. You will be hearing this on February 14th. So happy Valentine's Day. I know today it's all about love, but I'd love for us to continue on the series that we started last week on Family Dynamics with Bola. Today, I want us to get a little bit deeper. How do you go about parenting when your spouse is not willing to shift? On the previous episode, we talked about finding that place of balance, right? Even when you have different parenting style, we talked about the parenting styles that we have, the importance of open conversations, and how it's important for us to present a united front after we've really found out how our spouse or even how ourselves we've been parented. So today, what happens when your spouse refuse to compromise? What do you do if you feel like their own parenting style is totally different from yours, but they're not willing to come to a place of compromise? How exactly do you want to navigate these differences with love? So, the first thing I want to say is oftentimes parenting disagreements come from a place of love and not malice. You know, love is the core of parenting. Every parent, every normal parent wants the best for their children. It's just they have different ways of expressing it. So if you come with that perspective that my spouse wants the best for our children, they just have a different way to parent it. That would really, really, really help you, even if your spouse is not trying to shift ground in the way with which they express them to your child, right? So, an example is this: if you, let's say your spouse is very, very strict, and you feel like this my spouse is an authoritarian, or is utilizing authoritarian parenting style, and you feel like, oh, they're too strict on this kid, because love is at the core of what they're doing. So you, as the other spouse, you can tell them, instead of you saying, oh honey, or whatever you call your spouse, you're too strict with this kid, you can say, well, I love how much you want these kids to succeed. I love how much love you have for them. But can we explore a way to support them without making them fearful of you? These kids are very fearful of you. You know, you could use that. When you shift that word, it doesn't come as if you're attacking their person. They can think of it like, oh, okay, maybe there's a way to support these kids without making them fearful, right? Or even if they don't, if they're like, well, this is the way that I know, like, okay, I totally understand that. This is the way you know. But I'm very sure there's some other ways we could explore. But you're doing such a good job. You love them. I can see the love. It's out of passion that you're trying to do this for the kids, right? Yeah, you could do that. And let's see if that one would work. Another practical thing you could do if your spouse is not willing to budge is you have to know and understand what is outside your control. To be candid, you can't really change your spouse because it's out of your locus of control. So instead of you focusing on how do I make this man or this woman, change their parenting style, focus on your own impact on your kids. If you feel like you're on that balanced path with your kids, Just focus on that. Focus on what your impact is making. I know sometimes it might feel like your spouse is undoing all the great work that you're doing, but you can't really control that. There's so much you can do about that. So if you keep focusing on that, it's going to stress you. And one thing I want you to know is if you believe that your parenting style is the best, your child will still learn from your approach. So you're still making impact. So you want to focus on that impact so that you're still making. Some of the questions you could ask yourself is, what are some of the healthy habits I can model for my child, even if my spouse is doing something else, What can I do on my own part? How can I maintain my values, even if my spouse doesn't agree? And how can I provide emotional safety in my own interactions with my child or my children? You can do that. If they're not budging, you can focus on your own impact. And that would really help. Your kids would know and they would still learn from your own approach of things, even if your spouse is not moving. One other practical thing I wanted to share is even when you disagree with the way your spouse is parenting or their style, you still need to show them love and respect. When you do that, you're modeling how to handle conflict with respect and love, even for your own child. So you don't want to criticize your spouse because most times they often make things worse when we criticize them when we don't agree with them. You know, I'm not saying condone bad behavior, but you don't want to criticize your spouse too in front of your kids. And even when you disagree with them, you can still show them love and respect. And if you see that they're going in a way that it might be damaging to the kids, you might just be like, oh, honey, please, can I quickly see you? And then you find a neutral moment, not in the heat of the argument, right, to discuss your concerns with them. You can tell them, I see how much you care about disciplining these kids. I truly admire that. They need to be disciplined. However, I'd love for us to talk about what discipline is, what it's not, and how we can really support these children so that it can become the global citizens we're trying to raise them as. That would just really neutralize everything. And if it's someone who is reasonable, they can over time see the way you approach that with love, with respect. You see that they begin to change. And the last thing I'd love to talk about is even when your spouse is not budging, focus on connection and not on control. You have to understand that parenting is about relationship. Even when you and your spouse, if you have that differences, you need to prioritize your family bonding moment. Make out time. That is not just about parenting styles. It's not just about what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong, but a time that is about love and connection. Love is able to win any battle. Love is able to win anything. So make out time to come together and just build that connection with you and your family against all odds. I know parenting with different style is hard. It's not a walk in the park. But when love is the foundation, you can overcome any obstacle. And as this Valentine's Day is here today, it's a good time and a good opportunity for you to focus on what you love about your spouse, what you love about your parenting. It's a good time for you to Focus on the common goal that you and your spouse share to raise healthy, well rounded children. Have time, even if your spouse does not always agree with you. Your children, they're watching how you navigate those differences with love, with patience, and respect. So you're making so much more impact in their life than you can really imagine. All right. I'd love to stop here today. Thank you so much for listening. This is Family Dynamics with Bola.